Today's podcast is sponsored by Fire Facilities Incorporated, expert engineers, designers, and manufacturers of steel training towers, burn rooms, and mobile units that are all made in the USA. All right, welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. Today, my guest is Damon Simmons, or should I say Chief Damon Simmons, or should I say Dr. Chief Damon Simmons. Now, Chief Simmons has been a 25-year member of the fire service. Now, he started off as a firefighter-paramedic with Burlingame Fire Department in 1997. Am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Burlingame?
Good old Burlingame.
Okay, and then you were hired in 1999 in Oakland Fire Department, where you've worked a majority of your career downtown as a company and chief officer. Currently on detail to the training division as the chief of training. That's my job. Love some training. And you enjoy all aspects of the fire service, especially as a public servant. Now, I told you I was going to bust on you a little bit. So yes. That is, for those listening, I always ask for a short bio. And the wonderful people that I get on my show always send me a very short bio. So I kind of like to look around. Now, I was aware of Chief Simmons before, and I've met him in Sacramento. So I want to ask you just a couple of questions that may have been left off of your bio you sent me, and you just answer yes or no. How's that?
There you go. That's even better.
Do you have an associate's degree?
That's a yes.
Okay. Do you have a bachelor's degree?
That is a yes.
Do you have an MBA?
That is a yes.
And do you have a PhD?
Doctorate degree, business administration. Yes.
You are quite possibly the smartest person I know, and you should not be on my show. That's for sure. You're obviously too smart for 3-Point Firefighter.
No,
that's amazing.
I always tell folks I just stayed in the game a little longer. There's a lot of individuals who have never set foot on a college campus who are brilliant. And, my growing up, education was always pushed in the household, and I just stayed at it. And I tell young firefighters today, because of the schedule that we work and the allowances that we have on the job, use your time wisely in the firehouse, because it's really easy to get caught up. You get in that routine of coming to work, and I've been there, done that, where you get to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, have coffee, check your equipment out, and do all the stuff that we do as professional firefighters, and some of the stuff that we shouldn't do, hang out, watch TV all day, and gossip and eat and do some more complaining and gossiping, all the things that occur in fire stations all across the United States. And before you look up, 5, 10, 15 years go by, and you ask yourself, hey, my career shot by. So don't be one of those individuals. And, and I enjoy the fire service tremendously. As you mentioned, I have 25 years in the fire service, and I tell folks now I'm at the halfway point. And
the halfway point?
Yeah. So when I first came onto the job here in Oakland, one of my first battalion chiefs, Chief Dosa, he had 52 years on the job. And so I'm shooting for a nice even 50. And,
wow.
God willing, and as long as my health stays intact, I expect to accomplish that. And I say that I enjoy what I do, as we all do as professional firefighters. I've yet to meet a professional firefighter, whether current or retired, well, I take that back, who have said that they wish they had did something else in life. The overwhelming majority of people I come in contact with, they love they love their job. And when I first came on the job, another gentleman I work with, Captain Ernie Sherman, he was our last Vietnam veteran to retire from the Oakland Fire Department. And folks used to get on him, hey, Captain Sherman, when are you going to retire? And I can tell that it used to weigh on him. And so now when folks ask me, hey, Damon, you got 25 years on the job, how many more years you got left? And inside of me, I kind of cringe a little bit, like, don't you ever ask me that question again. And so I know the feeling. And so when those conversations come up at the dinner table about, retirement dates, I tend to change the subject or ease my way from the dinner table because I enjoy what I do. And there's a funny story, when you asked me a few weeks ago to come on this podcast, I kid you not, I was at home in my home office listening to your podcast. You were interviewing Captain Cirillo out of the
Oh,
city of New York. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm
yeah.
listening to this podcast, and this guy is asking me, "Hey, you want to be on my next show?" So I was like, "Wow." So I don't know if you got some type of magic bugs, some type of secret bug in your system to where you know who's listening, and you kind of and when I met you in Sacramento, it was something about you that I liked right away. And you actually remind me of an individual who I work with. Unfortunately, he's getting ready. Well, fortunately for him, he's getting ready to retire. But for me, because I like the gentleman so much, his name is Jim Whitty. You and him kind of you both look alike, and
So
you
he's very
both
handsome.
very, very, very very handsome. Exactly, and you have that wit about you, like Jim Whitty. So I'm gonna make sure he gets a copy of this and get it out. So no, when I met you in Sacramento, it was something about you that infectious smile and that funniness and witty, all the above. I was like, this is a nice guy.
I don't
And
see how you cannot be in a good mood when you're doing live fire training. You're all bunkered out. It just
that's
if how can you be grumpy? It's like the greatest job in the world. I always say I feel bad for astronauts, fighter pilots, doctors, and lawyers because they didn't get to be firefighters.
that's
You
true.
know,
That's
best
true.
job in the world. Our
Exactly.
worst day is still better than any great day in any other
Exactly.
occupation.
And I was just thinking of that. Jake, I was down at the bank today getting some money next door, the credit union right next door to OPD, Oakland Police Department, their credit union. Well, their union office, and they were out doing PT.
Mhm.
These were their recruits in their academy, and so I was like, gosh, I'm not going to say these folks got in the wrong mind because obviously they enjoy what they do.
Sure.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed up for it. But I was like, little do they know what they're missing out on. But in all kidding aside, going back to that public servant, whether you're working for a local fire department or a local police department, I can't think of two two greater professions because you get the chance to serve the public. And as you can see right now, I'm in my uniform and I enjoy wearing this uniform each and every day, including the badge. And one of the things I tell young guys and gals that come on the job is wear your uniform with pride because you earned it. And nothing. And I understand how you look in terms whether you got on the Class B uniform, which is what I'm wearing, or a Class S station uniform. At the end of the day, you know when Grandma House catches on fire, he or she, in this case she's looking for some competent individuals to come and put the fire out and everything else that comes with it. But
Yes.
wear your uniform with pride because you earned it, and it commands a lot of respect. And most importantly, you never know who you're going to potentially influence when you're out in the public, whether you're out shopping or, in my case, I don't get a chance to ride on the fire engine no more. I get a ride in this 2002 Ford Explorer that's on its last leg.
2002?
Um, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, so I, I'll make sure to send this out to my fire chief, Dr. Freeman. He can give me a new rig. But no, yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I enjoyed it. And so when I get a chance to talk with folks like you from other parts of the country and share my story and share my perspective on the fire service, both from an American perspective and then also from an international perspective, I enjoy it because one of our connections, in addition to being professional firefighters, is that we're both members of the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, and I'm part of
Love it.
several groups. I love all of them. IFSTA, the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, I Chiefs Company Officer Section. I enjoy all of them because
Hmm.
I get a chance to be part of working with groups of talented men and women who are shaping the fire service.
Yes.
And the ISFSI has a special place in my heart because I enjoy teaching and I enjoy professional development, personal professional development, but then also professional development for both aspiring and current members of the fire service. And I tell folks, training and education is the backbone of our profession.
Hmm.
Once
Yes.
again, folks out there, especially you new firefighters, training and education is the backbone of our profession. And there are some talented individuals in the fire service all across the world who are on many levels just phenomenal in regards to what they do, what they know, and what they share. And anytime I can pick up a book, an article, and learn something about this profession known as firefighter in all aspects of it. You know, my first love and what I will always enjoy learning about is the suppression side, but also the EMS side, the hazmat side. And I spent 10 plus years working downtown as both a lieutenant and a captain at our station one, which houses an engine, a truck, our technical rescue, and a battalion chief. I enjoy all aspects of it.
Now, with you being so highly educated, I can only assume you never did truck work. You only did engine work, right? Because that's the smartest group in the fire service.
Exactly.
Boom.
See, there's reason number two why I like you. So, um, I spent 20 years in the firehouse. 18 of those years, I worked at a double house. So, double house, there's a engine and a truck. And spent most of my time by design riding the engine. And I enjoy riding the engine because no matter where you go in the United States Fire Service, very rarely will you have a truck company that outruns an engine company. Now, there are some
Yes.
busy truck companies out there, but
Hmm.
I enjoy engine work because you get a chance to be out there um, on a regular basis. You get a chance
Hmm.
to be first in when you have some type of incident. And I tell folks, I never wish for a structure fire because those few moments are at the lifetime expense of a family. However, that's part of our
Right.
job is to be highly trained and competent. So when that bell goes off, whether it's the EMS call or a structure fire, you'll be ready to go. But
Hmm.
I enjoy engine work, and I have the luxury. Most folks in the fire service, well, I shouldn't say most, quite a few folks in the fire service know of this individual. His name is Daryl Liggins. He's a captain. Him and I came in together in Oakland Fire Department. He is also passionate about engine work. He does a lot of training across the nation with the individual who you were interviewing when you reached out to me and asked me to come onto the show. And so we enjoy all aspects of engine work.
Nice.
Uh,
The joke I made, I always like to say this too. So for the truckies that are listening to this, have an engine guy explain the joke that I made, and they'll laugh. You know,
exactly.
but no, I think in all serious, they're all dull, dim-witted, and very
Correct.
very limited in their vocabulary.
Exactly. and I and since we're on the subject of engines versus trucks, I know some of those folks out there. And there's an individual at the Kirk, if I'm wrong, you had worked used to work in Lexington, right?
Yes, sir.
So there's an individual who will remain nameless who worked for your former department. I had a chance to work with him during a assessment center a couple of years ago. So he's real big into the truck work. But I always tell truck guys, you guys, the function of a truck company, especially at a structure fire, is to support engine company operations. Whether that's
That's
to
right.
force a door for us, to provide ventilation for us, or other miscellaneous items that come with truck work. But it's nothing like being on a nozzle, whether it's an inch and three quarter, two and a quarter, which is something we knew we have in the Oakland Fire Department, 2.5, and doing what we get paid to do. And I always say,
Truckies they're the gentlemen of the fire service. They open the doors for firefighters.
I like that one. I got to use that exactly.
Yeah.
And so I
And
know.
if Mike Torres from Chicago's listening, brother, I'm only kidding.
Yeah,
He's a big truckie up in Chicago.
yeah. But like I said, individuals who ride a truck or truckies, truckmen, whatever you want to call them, they play a pivotal role in our success. But at the
Right.
end of the day, a steel chainsaw has never put out a fire. A a a trash hook or a rubbish hook or a pipe pole has
Mhm.
never found an individual in a room, in a closet. It's men and women who ride those engines each and every day, and they take a beating. The
Yes.
majority of what we do is engine work. I mean, is EMS work today, but whether it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the morning, engines are out running. Another good friend of mine worked for Oakland Fire Department. He just made lieutenant. Young man, he said, Devon, we only have so many runs in us. And so he spent a lot of his time hiding on the truck. And so now he's a company officer. He sent me a copy of the logbook the other day. We still use journals, and in addition to electronic reporting. He said, "Man, um, I don't know if I made the right decision." He had like 7 runs after midnight. So when you're used to sleeping, throughout the night on the truck, and then now you are a company officer, or as you guys say out in the East Coast, engine boss. It's a lot different, but it's
Yeah,
all good
it
work.
is.
It's all good
Yeah.
work.
I love it. We're soulmates, man. I'm telling you, love the engine work. I love the engine work.
Exactly.
I like EMS. I like the hit and miss of EMS. You go there, you help, and you go back to the firehouse. You don't have to take them to the hospital. You don't have to do all the
Exactly.
reporting. No.
Exactly.
That's where it's at. But hey,
Exactly.
some people are just blind to the fact that engine work is hero
Exactly.
work.
Exactly. Thank you. See, so you young firefighters out there listening, make sure you study all aspects of your craft. Like I say, you and I, Jake, we're obviously partial towards engine work. It's a lot to it, especially as an engine officer, you're first in on the scene typically, and so what you do, what you do not do, what you say, what you do not say, as that first in engine officer slash incident commander, sets the tone for the duration of that incident. And so it's you know, I look at that engine officer, he or she's that quarterback, and
Mhm.
some very important decisions that you're making early, sometimes with no information, other times limited information, other times with information that's conflicting. But at the end of the day, we got to select the right hose line. We got to be able to quickly deploy that hose line, working together as a team, a company, um, locate, confine, extinguish that fire. Now, obviously, that's easier said than done. But at the end of the day,
Right.
that's what it's all about from an engine perspective when you are operating at a structure fire.
Our objectives, if you write down a fire department's objectives, it's a very short list.
Correct?
But if you look at the strategy and tactics behind those objectives, it is a huge book and it's constantly changing. And
Exactly.
you got to be able to switch on the dime. You really do.
Exactly. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And that's when, it's about being versatile. 1 minute, 9 o'clock in the morning, you're on a cardiac arrest, 10:30 in the morning, you could be at a two alarm, 3 alarm structure fire. And like I say, from that engine perspective, you're making some critical decisions early on, where to stretch the line, where to begin the search, whether or not to call for additional resources, where to place those additional resources, those engine and truck companies, as long as you're operating as the chief. Excuse me, as the incident commander.
Hmm.
Yeah. And no
Let me
matter
ask you
where
this.
you go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, sir. I was going to
No, no,
ask
go
you,
ahead.
what got
Go
you
ahead.
in the fire service? You obviously you were little and you said, you know what? I want to be hold a doctorate, enough degrees to be technically a thermometer, and I want to be a
Uh,
fire chief. I want to be a firefighter. What sent you down that path?
so, Jake, this is pre-internet, 1991. I barely graduated from high school. And so my senior year in high school, I flunked out of trigonometry. It was either trigonometry or calculus. So for the fourth semester, for the fourth period, which is the last class before lunch, I had to go sit in the counselor's office. And Miss Kennard, she was my counselor at Independence High School in San Jose for 4 years. So she was like, Damon, what do you want to do? I said, Miss Kennard, I'm not quite sure what I want to do other than just go to college. So initially, I started off at a junior college. And the funny story with that, and Jake, I will, get around to answering the question.
No, no, take your time. I'm enjoying the shit
Um,
out of this. Go ahead.
I was I was growing up in San Jose, and don't ask me why, but I always had this fascination that going to college was cool, but a junior college is not a real college. Don't ask me why I thought. And the funny thing, for the last 20 years, I've been teaching at a junior college. So,
Karma.
so, so fast forward, I'm working as a sky cap at the San Jose airport. And first semester, I was a business major. I started with 6 classes, and at the end of the semester, I was down to 2. So, you do your calculations, I probably would just now have received an AS degree 20 some years later. So I was at work one day at the airport, and once again, it's pre-internet, so I was looking through the catalog for classes for next semester, and I came across the term fire science. I was like, wow, that's interesting. So at lunchtime, I went down to the registration office because once again, you couldn't log into your smartphone or your iPad. You had to actually go and talk to someone in person. I said, I want to take that Fire 50 course. Now, mind you, as a kid, I'm a first generation firefighter.
Okay.
As a kid, I was not fascinated by fire engines and trucks. When I used to see an engine go down the street, I wouldn't like stop and scream, "Oh, that's a fire engine." That wasn't me. Uncle, brother, dad, no one that was in the fire service. And as a matter of fact, as a little kid, I lived behind a fire station in San Jose, State Engine Company number 4. I never set foot in a firehouse. So it was seeing the words fire science in this school catalog at Mission College, Santa Clara, that got me interested in fire service. Spring semester 1992, took my first fire science class, and 5 years later, of course, I didn't think it would take that long, but out in California at the time, it was very, very, very competitive getting into the fire service. I was hired in Burlingame. So I spent my first 2 years in Burlingame. Burlingame, small bedroom community. We call it the high rent district. High rent district that homes are millions of dollars.
Oh,
Great people, great, 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 great bunch of firefighters over there. They taught me a lot about professionalism. They taught me a lot about being a good public servant. They taught me a lot about not being one of those guys at the dinner table complaining, talking about the fire chief, the city manager, and all that. That if I was a fire chief, I would do this. If I was the city manager, I would do this. That was all foreign to me in Burlingame. And then in 1999, Oakland called. And Oakland at the time, they were getting ready to roll out first responder paramedics. And so my class, it was about 14 of us. Most of us came from other departments. Few came from private ambulance providers. So we were the
how old were you
first
then at this time? How old were you?
in Oakland. I was 26. I got hired in the fire
Okay.
service at 24. Oakland came to Oakland in 20s. I was at the age of 26, and I've been here ever since. I love the Oakland Fire Department. I call it the Oakland Fire Department. It's kind of like those of you who are Ohio State fans. You call it the Ohio State, or Miami fans, they call it the U. the Oakland Fire Department. And I tell people all the time, everyone should think that their fire department is the best out there. And because I work
They
for Oakland
should.
Fire Department, I feel that way. That I work with a great group of men and women who are highly competent and who are good public servants. And I couldn't think of any other organization I would want to work for. Even though growing up, I mean, not saying growing up, in my younger years, my two dream departments were Chicago City and Los Angeles City.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, at the time, both fire departments they had residency requirements. So even though I was born in Michigan but raised in San Jose, trying to fudge a residency in Chicago, that was going to be a little difficult to do. And then Los Angeles City, I was close, and I was talking to a buddy of mine. I was like, okay, I passed the written exam. They state that by such and such date, before the interview, I need to establish residency. You think I can pull it off? He was like, no, it's not going to happen because at the time, LA City, he said they would literally go knock on your door, your neighbor's doors, and hey, we're getting ready to hire this individual. We're looking to hire him or her. Do they live in the neighborhood? How often do you see them? So I was like, well,
Oh
that's
wow.
not going to work. And so, but you know, I'm a big believer in fate, and it was destined for me to spend my time here in the Oakland Fire Department. And for the last 25 years, that's where I've been. I'm one of the few who both live and work in the city of Oakland. So not many of us can lay claim to that.
Well, why is that? Why do most of the people that work in Oakland not live there?
Different reasons.
I've heard of a lot of apartments that do that. I have heard a lot of apartments
Yeah.
like Glendale, California, and Las Vegas, places like that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, there's a couple
what is
different
it?
reasons. Some people would say affordability. It is. It has gotten a little expensive here in all parts of the Bay Area, including Oakland. That's part of it. And other people, it's schools and a bunch of other different reasons. But it's one of the things I enjoy because I live here. And it's not to say that people who only work here and they don't live in the city that they serve, that they can't be good public servants, because that's not nearly the case. But it adds an extra layer to it when you live in the community that you serve, and your neighbors know that you work. My neighbors know I work for the Oakland Fire Department, so from time to time they'll come knock on the door with a question about an inspection, vegetation management inspection. I tell them, hey, follow the rules because I've been violated too. A couple couple years ago, I had some overgrown vegetation, and I received a violation as well. So make sure you do what the folks say, um, what they tell you to do in terms of making sure your home is safe, from a fire perspective.
Now, how big is Oakland, the fire department?
So Oakland Fire Department, we have a total of 25 stations, including the airport. So we're not a big department. We're not in Chicago or Los Angeles City or Los Angeles County, but at the same time, we're not a two or three station department. So we're right there in the middle, kind of using that
Mhm.
basketball term, a tweener, someone who plays in a position in between a small forward and a guard. So we're right there right there. I'm in the middle, which for me is my currently I'm on detail right now as the training chief, and so I'm part of a team that's responsible for overseeing and facilitating all things related to professional development. Um, it makes it a little challenging in terms of scheduling drills and how long it takes to go through a cycle. But yeah, so 25 stations, 24 engine companies, 7 truck companies, and then the airport, which is a six-piece company, 5 ARF firefighters and an ARF captain, which makes up our
Mhm.
25th station. So when I first came on the job, we had 26 stations. So right now, our fire boat is currently open, and we're hoping that it will become a permanent fixture, and that'll put us back at 26 stations. And Oakland, geography wise, it's not necessarily it's not a big city. Land wise, we're bigger than San Francisco. Now, obviously, San Francisco is a little bit more dense, from a population perspective. So yeah,
Right.
and so a lot of rich history in Oakland, good, bad, and different from a historical perspective, sports perspective, you name it. Um, it's Oakland is associated with all of it, and that carries over to the Oakland Fire Department. One of the things in our organization, and no different than any other fire department. We have our issues, but at the end of the day, when folks come to Oakland, the culture of the city and then the fire department kind of meshes together, and we coexist, we work together, and obviously, when the bell goes off, we put our differences to the side and we go out there and serve our citizens. But it's the city and its rich history definitely rubs off on the fire department in a good way.
Hmm.
And as younger folks out there, that swag and other terms that coolness. Hey, I'm an Oakland firefighter. Is there, and
Yeah.
so just like in
Well, and
Lexington, right?
Chief, just like in Lexington, fantastic fire department.
Exactly.
I think it's only gotten better. 20 some odd stations, like you were saying, a lot of tradition in
Yep.
Lexington. Some of it questionable,
Yep.
some of it fantastic.
Exactly.
Um, some of the best years of my life. Of course, I was too young, too immature to really, really appreciate what I had in Lexington. But no, I get it. I totally get it. Your department has to reflect your community. It
Correct.
just does,
Mm-hmm.
in more than one way.
Correct.
So, and unfortunately, I have seen some departments that don't reflect their community.
Correct.
They're filled with city employees, not firefighters.
Yep.
So, I mean, I get that.
Correct.
I've seen both sides of that coin.
Mm-hmm.
So let's switch gears a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't even know where to start, but I think I got a good starting point.
Okay.
Tell me about how you got started with the society, and what led you down that path to where you're at now.
So with the society, how did I get started? That's an interesting question. I have to think about that for a minute. How I got started with the society, um, initially I signed up and I was a member, and then I
Hmm.
got involved with a couple committees with a good friend of mine, Jesse Marquette, out of Michigan, the mentoring,
Jesse, my
yeah,
man,
the mentoring
love me
program,
some Jesse.
yeah, good man, consummate gentleman. And then
But who's more handsome, me or Jesse?
it's a tie.
Well, I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to
Okay,
go ahead and photo and kind of ruin the audio here
okay,
and have it say where you go. Well, you're way more handsome
yeah,
than Jesse.
yeah, that's a silly question, but yeah, Jake, that's a silly question to ask. You already know the answer. It's you. Come on,
Oh,
Jake.
I can't wait for Jesse to listen to this.
Yeah,
But I'm
and
sorry, I interrupted
that's
on
okay.
a
No,
bad
no,
joke.
no,
So
no, no, no,
Jesse
no,
got you in there.
no. Yeah, no. That was a good one. Like I say, Jake, I tell you, that's what I like about you. That you remind me of Jim Whitty, a guy I work with. And if you ever were to meet him, you guys
Hit it
would,
off pretty good.
yeah, you guys hit off a good. You guys would hit off a good. I don't know if you guys could ever get folks to stop laughing, but
Gotta have fun.
exactly,
Gotta have fun.
exactly. And so yeah, that one thing led to another. I got involved with some projects and then the professional development, and then Lee, who had saw a lot in me. Lee Hubbard, who runs the society, asked me to join the board, and here I am. And like I say, I enjoy all the different fire service affinity groups that I'm a part of, and they all have different purposes, but at the end of the day, they're about serving professional firefighters. And with the
Yes.
International Society of Fire Service Instructors, I enjoy learning, and I tell folks all the time, if you ever receive an email from me or part of read something from me, at the end, my tagline is always be remain a student of your profession. And the society, it shapes the men and women who are current and future instructors in the fire service. And that's one of the things I enjoy about the mission of society is providing that professional development for instructors. Because as we all know, teaching is both an art and a science. An
Yes.
individual, he or she can be a good engine officer, engine firefighter, truck officer, truck firefighter, but are you able to deliver knowledge, information in a manner that affects or influences learning? And going back to it, at the end of the day, our success as professional firefighters is predicated on training and knowledge. I mean, training and education. And as
Yes.
they say, if you want to really know and learn about an organization and how much it values its employees, is you look at its training division. We're fortunate here in the city, well, unfortunate here in the city of Oakland, due to some things that we weren't necessarily able to control. Our training division for a number of years was short staffed. Fast forward to today, Dr. Freeman, who is our 37th fire chief, he comes to us by way of Hartford, Connecticut. He has been very instrumental in increasing our staffing, not only out in the companies, but also in our training division. And it's been tremendous. And we all go through those points in our career where we have our high points and our low points. And when Chief Freeman
Yes.
came to Oakland, he definitely re-energized many of us in the organization, and myself included. And that's not to say that I was at a point where I was checked out, because that was furthest from the case for me in terms of the fire service. My energy level was high, but he just took it to a whole nother level. And to the
Right.
point one day, I never forget, Daryl Liggins and I, we were in his office and we was going over some stuff. And this one, he was brand new here as the fire chief, and so I'm excited. Okay, I got a fire chief who's big on training, who's big on education, and he wants to do A, B, C, D, and E. I'm like, this is great. I'm like a kid in the candy store. And so he's like, hey, okay, Demond, I need you to do this and do that. And then I'm like, does this chief know it's just three of us down here at the training division? Because he's talking from a perspective. It's like I got a staff of 20 people. I was like, Chief, I was
Right.
to myself, who in the hell is going to do all this work? It's just three of us. But no, it was refreshing. Like I say, it's it's refreshing when you work for a fire chief who values training and education. It's refreshing when you work for a fire chief who pushes you. And in the short
Mhm.
10, I knew him before he came here, but during the short 10, he's been here over a year now. It has definitely. Um, I'm excited about the next 5 to 10 years here in the Oakland Fire Department, and so yeah, I'm excited from that perspective. So going back to the International Society of Fire Service, once again, you folks out there, I know, I listen to different podcasts, and especially the young firefighters, they get excited about firefighters coming and talking about the last fire they went to and all that good stuff. That's not necessarily the intent here. Um, I like the way I like the way this conversation is going. It's looking at it from a broad perspective. But back to that, putting that plug in for the International Society of Fire Service Instructors. I encourage all of you to become members of the society. And no, I'm not receiving a compensation for getting you guys to join. But just
Neither
like,
am I.
yeah,
I
just yeah,
I talk about it every podcast,
yeah,
and it's like a drinking game. If you're listening to my podcast, you take a shot when I mention the society, you'll be hammered halfway through.
exactly,
So yeah,
exactly. Great,
yeah.
great, great group of folks. And where else could you get a chance to meet Jake if it wasn't for the
Right.
society? So
Okay, so I'm if I had to be honest, I'm probably the lowest level person in society you want to meet,
no,
but
we're all on
I
the
get to
same.
teach with some heavy hitters.
No, we're all Jake. No, and that's where I'm gonna playfully disagree with you. We're all on the same level. We're all doing this because we love it. None of us are being compensated for As a matter of fact, we pay to be part of the society.
Yeah.
So, but no,
Yes.
great,
Yes.
great group of folks led current. We had, Chief Van Dorp and now Seth Barker, who is leading us. And
Seth is an amazing, amazing instructor.
exactly,
Yeah. I'm
exactly.
always afraid he's going to punch me in the face, though. I think I aggravate him. Every time I'm with him, I aggravate him just a little bit more. I'm trying to push those buttons. And every now and then I get that look from him like, I could snap your neck. So I got to pull back a
Yeah,
little bit with Seth, but he's an amazing,
yeah,
amazing instructor. And can you imagine taking the reins of the ISFSI presidency from Pete Van Dorp, who
exactly.
knocked it out of the park? Excellent man.
Yeah,
And then it, Seth is the perfect person to pick that football up and carry it.
exactly, exactly.
Love me some Seth. Love me
Yeah.
some Seth. I've been very fortunate to teach with him a few times and learn a lot from him. But like I said, I kind of poke at him a little bit. I probably shouldn't as much.
And see, I don't know
But
Seth that well, but I can kind of see that. I can kind of see,
yeah,
he has that,
yeah.
very serious guy, which we all are, and it's like, who's this guy?
He is one of those guys. Here's why I love Seth so much. Yes, he comes off so serious and organized, right?
Yep.
But he is just as playful as you can imagine. When the work is done,
Hmm.
I mean, to me, it is so much fun to have a nice cold beer with
Hmm.
Seth around because he's the all-encompassing instructor. I think he gets the job done. He takes it as his priority, and then when it's time to play, he plays just as hard. I mean,
Exactly.
he's a fantastic guy, and I really think he's going to do great things for the society. And
Correct.
I've said on here, being a firefighter is like the greatest job in the world. But
Hmm.
if there's a subset that's even better of the fire department, it's being an instructor. And I'm not talking
Correct.
about just having a certification, but truly instructing.
Correct.
Now, if that is that good, there's one more thing, one more step above that's even 1,000 times better, and that's being part of the ISFSI community.
Correct.
And it's not just being a member, but being an active member.
Correct.
Again, I've met my heroes that happen to be ISFSI people, and they say never meet your heroes. Every single one of them has been amazing.
Correct.
Every single one of
Yeah.
them. And like you said, I'm not being paid by the society. They never, ever, one time, ever asked me to plug anything or to interview anybody. Never.
Correct.
But they also know my passion where it lies for the society. I really think it's the number one, and I know what number two would even be. Number one, instructor society
Correct.
in the fire service.
Correct.
Period.
And Jake and Jake, as you make those comments, I think of some of the other groups that I'm part of, and what they all have in common is that they're selfless individuals in these organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Great folks at IFSTA. I'm a proud member of the IFSTA executive board, and I know sometimes people will bash IFSTA textbooks, but keep in mind, IFSTA books are written by firefighters, fire service personnel for fire service personnel. And then the International Association of Fire Chiefs and the Company Officers section, currently Chief Hannafin out of Ohio. He leads that great group that I'm also a part of. But strip the titles, IFSTA, ISFSI, IAFC, a great group of firefighters who are dedicated to the profession, who are
Mm-hmm.
selfless, and who are truly students of the profession. And that's what I enjoy the most about this profession. Is the people who I get a chance to interact with on a daily basis, both
Right.
here in Oakland and then when I get a chance to travel across the nation and interact and network. So, young firefighters that are out there listening, uh, think outside of your organization.
Yes.
I tell my firefighters here in Oakland, yes, we do a lot of good stuff here in Oakland. Yes, there are other ways of doing things. Do not pigeonhole yourself into, well, if it's not taught here in Oakland, if it's not done here in Oakland, then it doesn't make sense. And to network. The
Now,
more people you
when
network,
you and I came in the fire service, it was almost frowned upon to get training outside your fire department.
oh,
Uh,
yes.
I mean, I can remember talking about fire. You don't know oh, you're going to do it that way, this way. But now I couldn't agree more. I was on a YouTube channel doing the Hot Wing Challenge with Dave Mellon from
Uh-huh.
Fire Valor Training. Excellent human being, excellent channel. But it was like, what advice would you give to yourself if you could go back in time? And it was exactly what you said. Start networking early. I didn't start
Yes.
networking until I was 20 years into my career, and I've met some amazing human beings. I think I've learned more about the fire service, not only always in class too, but I mean, after class, having a cold beer with a couple instructors and just talking. And
Yep.
and then if you got a problem, I'm like, oh, I can pick up my phone and say, let me talk to Chief, let's Chief Demond. Let me see if he's run into this problem. It's an
Hmm.
amazing network. And I can't stress it enough. I really truly believe, and I know this might make some people mad, but I really don't care. If the people get mad at this statement, I don't give a shit. If you go to work and you just stay in your firehouse and then you go home and you do that for 20 years, you're doing it wrong. You're just doing it
Oh,
wrong.
Jake, you hit that on the nose, and this profession, because of what we see and the type of schedule, it's easy to get jaded.
Hmm.
But I tell folks, if you look at things from a different perspective, you stay active and involved in the fire service outside of your own fire department, you will have a rich career.
Hmm.
But if you, as you just mentioned, if you just go to work, come home, go to work, come home, it's going to be a long 25 to 30-year career.
Right.
And another thing I tell folks too, and we were just talking about this, Jake, is I'm a strong believer that you can learn from any type of organization. What I mean by that, small fire departments, medium-sized fire departments, large city fire departments. A lot of times folks think, well, there's only two or three fire departments out in the nation that I can learn from. And if they're not doing it, it doesn't make sense. Some of the most knowledge that I have gained has been from firefighters who work in small organizations, who work for cities that are not destination cities. They're
Right.
not the New York cities, they're not the Chicago, the Los Angeles, the San Francisco, to Oakland. They're just small middle town America,
Right.
suburban fire departments, and they're a great group of firefighters. So number two, young firefighters, network, and then number two, do not limit who you can learn from. It's not just the big city fire departments who have a wealth of information. They don't have that monopoly on what's taught, what's learned, what we do. Expand your horizons. Talk when you go to conferences. Talk to individuals who work in a small one or two station fire department.
Yes. Yes. I just
Yeah.
got back from Iqaluit, Canada, and that's up in the Arctic. So the only way
Mm-hmm.
you can get there is flying in or by boat, but the ocean's frozen now, so it has to be flying in. And I talked, it's a small department, one station. They got a truck, an engine, I think two ambulances, right? So the first 10 minutes, I meet this Chief Steve McGee. He spent the first 10 minutes talking about his people and his department.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't at all about look what I did or I'm from here. He was beaming with pride. So
Mm-hmm.
as the longer I'm there for this class, teaching this class for the society, I meet his people. They've got a culture there that it's a very young department. It's a transitional department. People will come there for a few years, but very few
Mm-hmm.
actually retire there because it's so isolated.
Correct.
So here and I'm not I see a ton of great departments and I'm not trying to diminish that at all, but this small department in the middle of the Arctic had one of the best cultures. They
Yeah.
cared about each other, they cared about training, they cared about their community, and they
Mm-hmm.
loved their chief and their chief loved them. He starts I hope I don't get this wrong. I don't know if it's every day, but I'm pretty sure it's every day. He starts the first half hour of the day drinking coffee with his people. And he told me, he goes, and it's not to say, hey, this truck's out of service or we're doing this training. It's, hey, what's going on? But my point in all that ranting is that a small department had some in a transitional department had one of the best chiefs I've ever met, and
Hmm.
one of the strongest cultures I've ever been part of. And I told the chief, because I hate the cold. I do. I'm not gonna lie. I'm tropical.
Yeah.
I hate the cold. And I told him, I said, Chief, if you had a training spot up here for a training officer, I still wouldn't take it because it's so cold. But I promise you, I would think about it for at least a couple minutes because your culture, your department is one of the best ones I've seen. And I've seen a lot of great departments.
Exactly. And that's,
Yep.
when I was teaching a class, I guess somewhere in Illinois, nowhere near Chicago, and as we were discussing strategies and tactics, and one of the things, combination and volunteer fire departments, is that they're very resourceful in spite of having limited resources. And so things that we take for granted, such as here in Oakland, Lexington, having a hydrant on every corner,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case there. And so as we're discussing, like, hey, as a company officer slash incident commander, you got to make decisions based on your own situation. I can't come in here and tell you that on a first alarm assignment you need to have 50 firefighters when your fire department only has 5 people. Based on what you have and reading the building, you decide what you're going to do first, second, third, what you're going to do concurrently as it relates to tactics and task level activities. And back to this training piece, some of the best departments from a training perspective are your volunteer organizations. And I steal a lot of stuff from volunteer fire departments that I bring to the Oakland Fire Department because, I can't think of a more dedicated firefighter than someone who is a volunteer firefighter, or volley as they like to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then what, that's no knock on those of us who are paid firefighters, but to be a firefighter and you do it out of love and you do it with knowing that you're not going to be compensated,
Mhm.
that just takes it to a whole nother level.
You're giving up holidays, you're giving up birthdays, you're giving up seeing your kids maybe take their first steps because you care about the community. You love the community, you
Exactly.
know, and
Exactly.
that, and they outnumber us
Yes.
career, and
Yes.
I don't like the term professional versus volunteer because I tell you right now, I've met some paid firefighters that are incredibly unprofessional, and I've met some volunteer firefighters that are some of the most professional, badass firefighters I've ever met.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly. Exactly. And is with that, and speaking on that, when since we're talking about training and education, and these different conferences that are held throughout the nation, and a lot of times I feel bad that due to the price point, it makes it inaccessible for a lot of volunteers to attend, because who can pay $800-900 for an airplane ticket,
Mhm.
spend a week hotel and registration and all the other good stuff to get some valuable training and education? So I hope as a fire service we can get to that point to where we can really provide training and education across the board, to where money is not a inhibitor for folks to be able to participate. So that's one of the things that I sort of have a disdain for. And I know, a lot of the conferences these days, they're corporate ran, and I know you gotta be able to turn some profit to some degree, but oftentimes it's at the expense of young men and women who are volunteer firefighters, or young men and women who are career firefighters who are just starting off, and they just can't afford that additional training, that cost for training and education. So,
Right. There's so many new micro conferences popping up. I know
correct.
I think it's Nick Pepper. He does him and his, and I apologize for not knowing his partner's name. That do the North Florida Fire Expo.
Okay.
It's like $200 or $300, and all the classes you can take in 2 or 3 days. And it's the same people that are at FDIC. I'm not
Yeah.
knocking FDIC. I love FDIC, but it's pricey. It's corporate
Yes.
ran and it's pricey.
Yeah.
Um, and I really like all those new micro conferences that are coming
Yes.
up because these people are starting to uh, to get out and get that knowledge. Now, another thing that I'm noticing, the more people I talk to, like you, uh, it's nothing to start a small fire school or a small conference in your area, and I'm sure they get a lot of these people and say, "Yeah, I would love to come down for a couple hours on one day and give a class or do whatever," because it's the people that love the job. They're not worried about making money. I've
Exactly.
never seen any firefighter instructor drive a Ferrari to work. Never seen it,
No.
not once.
No.
So, and I've never been to a conference where one of the instructors pull up in a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So it's a passion for the job. And I've always said, knowledge not shared in the fire service isn't knowledge.
Mhm.
Our currency is knowledge,
Yep.
and if we don't learn it and we don't give it away, it's just useless. It's useless. That's
Exactly.
all there is to it.
Yeah. Young folks out there that listening to what Jake just said, that knowledge is very valuable, and we have to make sure that we pass it along to the next generation of men and women who are going to call themselves firefighters. We can't just
Yeah.
take in information and hold it and not share it. It does us no good at all as
You
a
know,
as a profession.
right. And look at it this way. Now, this is going to seem like an arrogant statement, and I certainly don't mean it to be. It's more of
Mm,
a thought experiment. And I'm asking this to everybody listening. What is your legacy in the fire service? What is your legacy going to be?
exactly.
Okay. Now, your great grandkids, when they Google your name on the internet, will it show that you worked for a fire department for 20 years? Or will it show that, there's pictures of you at different conferences? There's pictures of you delivering at conferences, articles you've wrote, videos you've made. What is your legacy going to be in the fire service? What the
Exactly.
fire service has given you a lot of good things. What are you giving back? And
Yep.
I want you to think about that. I think about that all the time. I think about my great grandkids and on. I have no idea what my great grandfather sounded like, looked like, or what his favorite things were, but I know for a fact that the rest of my great grandkids, when they're flying around Saturn and they're looking at old videos of me, they're going to know one thing for sure. I loved my job to the 10th degree,
Exactly.
and every day I fell back in love with it.
Exactly. Hey Jake, I'm looking behind you. What's that ladder? That's ladder. What? That's
49?
John Travolta. Yeah. Yeah. Ladder
Yep.
49 with John Travolta. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I
I made my own little office with that. Yeah.
yeah. I see
Everybody
that
says it
movie.
should
Just
be backdraft.
yeah. Both. Yeah, both of them are good movies.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, Hollywood, but yeah.
Yeah. They're so real. I like when people say, "Is it really like that in a fire?" I'm like, I wish I could see that good in a fire.
Exactly. Exactly.
uh,
But no, back to that point, Jake. You talked about legacy, and I like that name Jake because it comes from one of my favorite movies, Training Day, with Denzel
I love
Washington.
that movie.
And
Yes.
so there's a lot of takeaways from Training Day that I use in real life. Of course, I don't necessarily use the colorful language that Denzel and Hoyt, Officer Hoyt, use, but yeah, that Jake but no, that yeah, that Training Day. That's yeah, a lot of good takeaways. And we
Yes.
talk about legacy, and what will your legacy going to be, or what is your legacy? And
Mhm.
you know, not everyone is going to be the keynote speaker at FDIC or at ISFSI event,
Right.
but nevertheless, that does not remove you from the ability of truly laying a strong foundation and legacy in your organization, if nothing else, and on the grander level, the fire service in general. Because once again, who wants to live a life where they come to work 2 days, go home for four, do that for 25 or 30 years, and not add anything else to it?
Hmm.
And I get it for, some folks who have families, they can't dedicate themselves to the profession in the manner that they would like to, or dedicate themselves in the manner that a person who's single, such as myself, can. But we all have a responsibility, and we all can leave a foundation in our firehouse, our
That's
battalion,
absolutely right.
our department, and in the profession.
That's excellent. I want to leave you with this one last thing.
Mhm,
So I was very honored to meet and then later interview Chief Frank Lieb from FDNY. He is the
mhm,
training chief for
mhm.
the active training chief for the Rock.
Uh,
And talking about legacy, he said this, not about legacy, but I'm using his words. When's the best time to plant a tree? 100 years ago. When's the second time to plant a tree? Right now.
yep,
And if you think about that with legacy, maybe you've done 30 years in the fire service or whatever. It's not too late.
correct.
If you look back at the joy in your adult life you have when you put on a fire department shirt or a fire department hat, or when you go on vacation and you wear one of those shirts and somebody calls you brother or sister. Okay, the fire department has done for you. It has delivered. What are you going
Correct.
to leave for that? What does the department deserve?
And Jake, since we're talking about gardening here, one of the things I tell folks too is that when we hire young men and women in the fire service, they're highly motivated, they're eager to learn. And unfortunately, sometimes we plant good seeds in bad soil. What I mean by that, they enter these firehouses, and those of us who are in the firehouses, when these young men and women, their first day on the job, their third day on the job, 6 months in on probation, 12 months in on probation, we have a responsibility to inculcate the legacy and culture that is associated with the fire service in a good way. Love for the job, constantly seeking out knowledge, constantly going out there training, constantly sharing information, and being good individuals with a good attitude. We cannot continue to take these eager young men and women, and as soon as they hit the firehouses, act, communicate in a manner that tells them that I'm working with a bunch of firefighters who don't appreciate what has been given to them. Because not everyone gets a chance to earn this. And I use the word earn, not give, but earn this badge. And so when you earn this badge, you have a responsibility to make sure that you are doing those things that the fire service needs. Because outside of the military, outside of law enforcement, I can't think of too many other professions where when the bell goes off and someone calls us in a time of need, that there's a chance that we may not go home in the same capacity that we came. All the more reason training and education is the foundation of our success. In the absence of continuous and relevant training and education, where would we be? Where will we be as a profession?
Brother, that you said a lot. You
Mhm.
said a lot.
Yeah,
And I've said it before, training's not an obstacle, it's an opportunity.
exactly. Exactly. So, young folks that are out there listening, and to your senior members as well, spend some time in the books. Spend some time in front of the computer taking an online course, whether it's through ISFSI or um, Firefighter Safety Research Institute, used to be UL and this, and all other different LMSs, learning management systems out there. And each day, dedicate a minimum 2 hours to your profession. Think of your professional athletes that you enjoy, whether it's Kobe Bryant, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Barry Bonds. They all play different sports, but what they have in common is the dedication to their profession. That's what puts them in a whole different sphere than your average NBA player or NFL player, or MLB player, if there is such thing as the average in that case. But they're all talented individuals. You know, you just don't make it to the pros by being average.
Right.
But take that same thing and apply it to our profession.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Appreciate you being on here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jake. And it was a pleasure getting a chance to meet you in Sacramento. And I hope to see you again soon at the next event that's out there. I think Firehouse World is coming up. I'm not sure if you're going to be there or not. But hope.
I'm not planning on it right now, but I'd love to go. Maybe I can work something out.
Okay. Well, I'll see you around.
Chief, have a good one. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, sir.